are sending there. Inside child, again, you are accessing the parent component. And here, when I am trying to do that inside the parent and child component hierarchy, the point is already the parent and child hierarchies are there. So if already parent child hierarchies are there and you are trying to access that, it actually performs a loop like process, because actually it should start with parent, then it should end with child inside it. Due to that, you can observe that I am trying to access this page. It is unable to render it because actually in the bootstrap, we have parent. And you are trying to access the parent inside this child. That's not the right method actor. That means this is not the right process. Why? Because already this child component is being accessed in the parent. Then you cannot access the parent again inside the child component. Then how do you send a message from here to there? That's where we need another technique. That's what we generally call as output. So forget about this because this is not the right point at all. So how we can actually, what we have to do is from the child component through output, from the child component through output, we have to emit a value. Through output, we have to emit value, which will be used inside parent. That we will see in the next point, we will discuss about that. So you cannot again access the parent component inside child components. That is wrong hierarchy at all. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. So here we are removing this. So we are just using a one level hierarchy here. We are just using a one level hierarchy here. So for that, we need to understand another process, how the data is emitted and how we can access and use the data. That is the process we need to understand that. Now it is working fine. Because previously the problem is you cannot access again the parent inside the child. That's a wrong hierarchy at all. So because already the child is being accessed in the parent, it goes on continuous looping now. So due to that, it is unable to render any component. So here the point is we need to emit the value. We need to emit the value. This child component should able to emit value so that parent component can catch it and use it. Parent component can directly send value into child because it is using that component inside it. But child cannot send it. So it has to emit it. You have to emit the values. That is the process, how we have to manage. So I hope you understood the concept here. Actually, the concept is, the main concept here is, so in the parent component, if there is something that you have to send into the child component, then the child component is having a property configured with input. From child component, if I have to send anything to the parent component, then obviously it should be configured. It should be configured with output. It should be configured with output. Through output, we need to emit the value, which will be catched in the parent, and it will use it. Right. So that is the basic approach. So how we can manage that, we will see. But first point is clear. How we can access a component inside another component. How do we pass the data from parent to child? That is the basic hierarchy, how to manage it, how we can access and use it. So a simple example for this is, a simple example. So how data is transported from one component to another. So the answer for this is the child component is defined with a property marked as input is defined with a property marked as input so that it can access the value from parent. It can access the value from parent and render in child. That is the basic approach. So this is the example for that, how we can manage. So what we are doing is add following components. We are adding the components, ng generate component. So one is the component is parent, skip test, and another one is ng generate component child, and skip test. Okay, and parent dot component dot ts. In parent component, we are just defining this. A message hello from parent. Okay, and in the child component, so we will design the concept here. So parent component dot html. In the html, we are accessing the child and displaying it. This is how we are accessing it. Now in the child component, so child dot component dot ts. In the child component, there should be an input property here. And in child component dot html, we have to print that input here. So this is the basic approach. This is an example how we can handle and use the parent and child hierarchy. How we can configure and use parent and child hierarchy. Once you are aware of parent and child hierarchy, then we need to understand another approach, how we can transport the data from one component to another component, which we used by using input. Now another point is how we can emit that output. Means how child can send data to the parent. So how we can catch that, how we can use it. In order to send anything to the parent from child, you need an output property, and through output property we can manage that. Actually, for that, one more important point is we need to create our own events, custom events. That means, for example, we have a component. This is the child component. So this child component is being used in parent component. We have the parent component. In that, we are using child. So when we are using child component, for example, this child component is having a screen. Just like some login, some options are there. Now you are accessing this inside it.